A boy named Ayaan used to reside in a tiny mountain community. There were vast valleys and towering cliffs all around the settlement, and a tiny river flowed through it. It wasn't a powerful river or a thundering force like the ones that people in faraway places talked about. This river was calm, quiet, almost frail. It carried leaves, twigs, and the reflections of the sky as it flowed down from the mountains, passing by stones. Ayaan and his grandfather would stroll along its banks each morning. His grandfather was calm, elderly, and intelligent. However, there appeared to be a weight to everything he said that Ayaan could never quite comprehend. Ayaan paused one day as they were strolling by a big rock that was situated in the center of the riverbed. It was enormous, unyielding, and immobile. "Grandfather, this little river can never move this rock," the youngster said, pointing to it. "Observe its weakness in relation to the stone." "Sit with me, Ayaan," the elderly man said with a smile as he took a seat on the grass. Being young, you can only see what is directly in front of you. However, the river is aware of the key to patience. Ayaan's head cocked in confusion. The granddad went on to say, "The world is not shaped by strength alone. Patience works. Even though it is little and mild, this river runs day and night. It keeps going. It doesn't grumble. And you'll notice that this rock will eventually show the signs of its travels. It will be gradually and silently carved by the water." The boy first glanced at the placid sea before turning his attention to the unwavering rock. He found it hard to believe. How is it possible for something so mild to triumph over something so strong? Years went by. Ayaan developed into a young adult. Life put him to the test, as it always does. He aspired to be a calligrapher, a word artist. Painting poetry that people would treasure for generations was his dream. However, his hand was awkward and his letters were not straight. In contrast to the masterpieces he admired, his work always seemed juvenile. The brush slipped and the ink spread incorrectly. One evening, frustrated, he screamed, "This is useless," and tossed aside his brushes. "The talent is not mine. I will never be successful." After hearing his cries, his grandfather, who was now elderly and slower, came to him. In a whisper, he put a hand on Ayaan's shoulder and asked, "Do you remember the river?" Ayaan turned away with embarrassment. "I remember, but what good is remember when I can't improve?" When Ayaan was a boy, the grandfather led him outside in the direction of the same river. He gestured toward the exact rock they had previously spotted. Ayaan's gaze expanded. The enormous stone had deep grooves but was still sturdy. The softly running water now sliced, molded, and marred the once smooth surface. "You see," replied the grandfather quietly, "the water continued to flow. It took its time. It didn't become upset. It just went on. And life remains the same, my beloved Ayaan. You use patience as a brush. Your ink is consistency. No matter how tiny, every effort shapes you into the person you were destined to be." Ayaan felt those words pierce his heart. The following day, he picked up his brush once more. His hands were still shaking. He was still working on his lines. However, he recalled the river. Day after day, page after page, he continued to paint. Years passed, and instead of months, he steadied his fingers. His letters developed a refined style. His work started to get attention from people in adjacent towns. His calligraphy was purchased by them. They asked for his poetry for their houses, festivals, and weddings. Once on the verge of giving up, Ayaan had transformed into the artist he had always envisioned himself to be. Ayaan, who is now older, grinned one evening while he was sitting by the river. Finally, he got it. He didn't get here because of his power, talent, or unexpected genius. It was patience, the same endurance that enables a gentle river to chisel away at rock. Grandfather was right, he muttered in his heart. However, life frequently puts this concept to the test. Ayaan started instructing kids in the village years later. When his pictures failed to live up to his imagination, one of his classmates, a child named Idris, became frustrated. "I can't do this," he said, tossing aside his papers. "I'll never measure up." Ayaan took Idris to the same river while grinning, just like his grandfather had done. The massive boulder remained in place, but the stream's unending perseverance had now left deeper lines on its bulk, nearly dividing it in two. "Do you see the stone?" Ayaan asked, putting his hand on the boy's shoulder. I once believed it to be immovable, yet the river revealed a secret to me. What power alone cannot accomplish, patience may. You too will forge your own route through the most difficult challenges if you persevere and never give up. With astonishment in his eyes, the kid listened, and just like the endless river itself, the tale of patience carried on from one heart to another at that same time. Therefore, it's possible that you are also facing a stone in your life, dear listener. Perhaps it feels too strong for your efforts, unyielding and immovable. Maybe despite your repeated attempts, nothing seems to be changing. However, keep in mind that you are the river. Yes, gentle, little, perhaps, but if you keep going, if you keep showing up, if you keep putting up your effort, eventually the stone will give way. The world is shaped by the silent power of patience rather than by violent outbursts. Patience endures although strength may falter and halt, and it prevails in the end. The next time you feel helpless in the face of life's obstacles, remember the river that chiseled the stone and remind yourself that patience is the key to achieving what strength alone cannot.